Hello everybody, in this video we will go through a little bit about good installations, bad installations, what are the factors, what to avoid, everything like that, because many people think that solar systems are sort of one kind only, that there's not many different kinds, not high quality, not low quality, but that's definitely not true. There are varying degrees of quality in solar systems, and we're going to go through a few of these things in this video. Um, Now I'm going to start with the Clean Energy Council in Australia. They found in 2019 that 1 in 4 systems in Australia are faulty. Now Australia, of course, as many of you know, are on the forefront of solar technology, and they have very high number of installations compared to other countries. So it's a great starting point to look at Australia when we want to understand how to use the technology and also what they have learned about mistakes and what works. So if 1 in 4 are faulty, what is the reason for that? Well, there are many. Obviously, when new companies, new technologies come in, many companies, they try to fight for the same market, obviously. Some are serious and some are not so serious. Some come in and want to make a quick profit and get out fast. And some have a more long-term plan. We are definitely of that kind. We really try to have a long-term plan about what we're doing, and soon we're going to launch a maintenance program among other things. And we travel a lot, so whenever there is a problem with an installation, we can come reasonably fast to check and see what's going on. So that's one thing to note. Now, regarding equipment, that is one area where there's certainly possible to have very low quality and very high quality. And there's a huge difference. And actually, of the low cost, especially in the market for small inverters and panels, low level, entry level poly panels and things like that, the technology is not very good and things break. And if you read about DIY solar and what people have done in DIY regarding small inverters, you will see that they tend to break extremely fast. And these brands, you can also get bigger inverters in the same brands, and I would not touch them at all because to me it looks like they are made to break, basically. Doesn't mean that it can't be useful, these kind of things, because for DIY projects to learn and to have on pumps, it's okay because the cost of changing is so small. But when you're talking about residential projects and bigger, you certainly don't want to be changing things all the time. You want to have something that lasts and you want to have long warranties. So then also another thing that companies try to do is they try to sell standard sizes to all customers because they have sort of standard packages and teams driving around installing standard packages. That's not a good way of doing it because every customer, every client have different goals and needs. So if the company doesn't do a proper survey and find out what's going on with that client, you are likely to get the wrong system for sure. So standardized systems in terms of solar is not good at all. So that should definitely be, if you contact the company and they have standardized stuff to a very high degree and low level of service and conversation before installation, that's not a good sign. Okay, so what about work? This also involves equipment, but we have a separate category anyway because it's sort of like a combination. How workers are using conduit, if they have a lot of hanging wires, wrong sizing of wires, wrong sizing of conduit. For example, combiner boxes that look like the left one here. This is obviously not ours compared to one of ours. You see there's a huge difference, both in appearance and safety, I would say. I mean, it's obviously when you have installation like this, it's over time it's more dangerous, absolutely. For many things, for people to touch, for fires, for many things like this. Another thing that people have to think about when they have solar is that you have to be able to monitor your system. If you have a short time and are not able to monitor it yourself, that's okay. But to go a long time without monitoring, that's really, you can't do it, because you have to be able to monitor your system so that you can see that it's working properly, giving the output that you want. We have some inverters now where you can actually click on the screen and see information, but more and more inverters come without screens. So in the future, the only way to find your information is through the online monitoring on the phone or on the PC. The Growwatt on-grid inverter that we use, that actually has a screen. So customers that have that is less important, but still there's a lot more detail to be found in the monitoring. And if you're dealing with not serious companies, you might have a problem with this over time. I can give you an example. We talked to a client who had an installation done by another company. The customer had lost the login information and then was not able to get it back from the company. The company did not help him to bring back his monitoring. And this is really terrible, and is a good example why it's important to pick the correct company, because a company has to help you with this. We managed to help this customer even though he did not install through us. I'm not sure we have the time to do things like that anymore, but at that time we actually did have time to help him. So we contacted the company that, not the company that did the installation, but the inverter company, and got the username and password reset so he was able to get into the monitoring again. But it's a lot of work for us, and it's not, we might not even have time to do it if that happens for clients that have done installations by other companies. Of course, if you are our customer, we will help you with that as a priority if you lose your username and password. Now for us it's quite easy because we send always an email to every customer at the end of an installation with username and password. So we have that in our system too, of course. So normally it's very easy to get a user back online for us. Okay, continue. Using a company that doesn't do an on-site survey. This is really important. And we have actually done that mistake in the beginning. Actually, the first installation we did that without an on-site survey, and we based ourselves on information given by the customer. That turned out to be a mistake, and we ended up having to replace parts of the roof because we thought we were dealing with a roof that we were not dealing with. And if you do an on-site survey, you have the chance to plan for things like that, and that's why it's mandatory for us to do an on-site survey ever since then. So that's also a hint for, that's a difference between a serious company and a not serious company, in my opinion. If they do an on-site survey or not, it's really important, and we always do. And we travel a lot, so it's not difficult for us to do surveys. We might not be able to do it the next day, but we're certainly able to do it within a week or two. Normally no problem at all. Roof planning. Give you an example here that is quite interesting. We did an installation in Uban Ratchathani. On the survey, we had a few options. We had this carport, we had that garage, and we had this main house. So this main house the roof is actually fiber cement. Fiber cement is prone to cracking. So after some deliberation, I decided we were not going to use the main roof. Even though this is the most initial logical choice to do the installation, because you can get all the panels on the same roof and the wires go straight down to the inverter room. You save a lot of money on wires and installation. I think probably most companies would go for this. But there is a big problem with that, and that is that once you get cracking in the fiber cement, and that's very likely to happen because it was old already, you have a very big problem. It's very difficult to repair, and the warranty from us, that doesn't last that long. So let's say the problems happen after 2-3 years. That's actually, if you look at the warranty, that's actually not our responsibility anymore. It's the responsibility of the customer to maintain that. But the problem is that it's very difficult to maintain when you have a solar system on top. And then you have to if you want to change the roof, you have to get the panels off and then change the roof or repair the roof. And you can have a very bad cycle going. So instead of that, without increased cost for the customer, I chose to install on this carport and that carport. So there's actually cables going underground here, so we made a ditch, obviously at a pretty big cost for us, but I mean, this is the overall long-term, by far the best option. Because this is a metal sheet roof, much better and easier to install. This is a carport, also metal sheet. If there is a small leak, these metal sheets are not very high quality, but if you have a small leakage here, it's not a problem because it's a carport, and if you put some silicone or on that, it's not gonna destroy any aesthetic. Obviously, I discussed all of this with the customer before we made the final decision, but the customer agreed with me both before and after that this is by far the best way of doing it, and now I would say even more so, because to install over here, even though I would say most companies would do it, it's by far the most inferior option. Okay, let's move on. When you plan for solar, and this I have to say that I've gotten more used to thinking about after popularity of EV, electrical vehicles, are taking off now, that I'm thinking more about this when I talk to customers. And I always have this question now, do they want to have an EV in the future? Because if they are planning for that, then they should have a bigger solar system. Because obviously, if you want to charge an EV from the solar energy, you need a bigger solar system. And it's the same with people. Are you planning a family, or are you going to have guests a lot? Then you should also plan for a little bit bigger system compared to what you might need at the present time. So this is really important to plan for further use. Of course, it's possible to add on, but it's always cheaper and easier to do it at the same time as you're doing the initial installation. So one thing I just wanted to mention at the end is that some people think that if you have a little bit shade on the roof, that means that you can't have solar, but this is not true at all. The loss that you have, especially on what we call the serial string connections, you have high voltage. It's the loss that you have is minimal. Of course, if it's completely in shade and a lot of shade all day, that's a different story. But let's say if you have a little bit of shade in the afternoon or the evening, which is most likely the case, it's very rare for an installation to have a shade in the middle of the day, because that's when the sun is in the middle of the sky, obviously, on the top. And that's when the energy is the most. So the loss that you have, let's say, from a tree in the afternoon is very small because the energy is so low anyway. The main energy comes between, let's say, 9 and 4, 9 and 3, 9 and 4. So, and I have many examples of that. We have done many installations where we have seen that in practice, that don't think too much about that. It's far over exaggerated. So, okay, that's a few tips and tricks. I mean, let me know if you like these kinds of videos, and we can do more of them. Okay, guys, take it easy.